5 card for Keter. We got Witch of Entertainment, Brana, and she's a Blaster support card. And she says, continuous on rear guard, if you have a Vanguard with Blaster in its card name, when this unit would be retired for card's cost, you may retire it as 2 rear guards. So this is incredibly helpful for Phantom Blaster Dragon, which has to retire 3 rear guards for his skill. So if one of those cards is Brana, you can retire Brana +1, and now you only have to retire 2 to make your opponent also retire 2. And in my mind, she kind of made PBD go from being a terrible to maybe a halfway decent deck to be thought about, kind of, sort of, really. But she kind of helps enable PBD become a little bit more of a useful deck overall. And that's why I put her in that 5 slot, because I think she just makes the deck really much more viable than it could have been prior to her reveal. And then my number 4 card for Keter in set 2, Additional Angel. This card says, act on rear guard, call Soul Blast 1, put this unit into your damage zone, choose a face-up grade 3 card from your damage zone, call it to a rear guard circle. So this card is useful for if you damage check useful rear guards early, such as Alden for Bastion, maybe a Refluke or Fasado, things of that nature. You can just play Additional Angel, Soul Blast 1, put her into the damage zone, call out Alden, and now Alden is placed. Alden doesn't need to be placed from hand for his ability, so then Counter Blast 2, Soul Blast 1, draw 2, do all the Bastion stuff and things that you normally would be doing. But at least this kind of makes your damage zone an additional I see additional hand, like a secondary hand. Basically what Angel Feather would do before, kind of embodied through here. So kind of use your damage zone as a second hand to then put something else out onto the board. I think it's really useful. And of course, being a generic card means that it's going to be useful going into the future, as well as something to keep in mind if the situation calls for it. Then the number 3 card for Keter, I got Form Up, O Chosen Knights, which is the normal order that Bastion received. I guess not necessarily Bastion, it can also be useful in Hexa Orb if you build for it, but more focus, or the general idea you think it's for, is for Bastion. But to play this order, you Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, and then perform all the effects according to the number of grade 3 units you have on the board. So 2 or more, give something +5. 3 or more, draw a card. 4 or more, choose your Vanguard, gets triple drive to the end of turn. It's a nice advantage engine, and it's scary because additional drive checks means more chances for Bastion to find a grade 3 to restand something. And all in all, it's kind of like a why not card to include in Bastion. I know it is an order, which means you can potentially roll it with Fort and lose out on that value there, but Bastion already played like 2 to 4 orders in set 1 anyway, so this isn't something that they're not used to. And I think it's just a no-brainer add to a Bastion deck. For Hexa Orb, I think there's better cards you can include than trying to stack up a whole bunch of grade 3s in your deck, because Hexa, like, I know you're trying to make Hexa Orb live for triple drive, even though you don't Persona ride. And I get the idea behind it, but I don't know if it's necessarily useful to try to build for that when Hexa Orb got very useful tools that we're going to touch on in an upcoming card. Kind of getting this segue, you know what I'm saying? Segue into the number 2 card in Diaglass Sorceress. Diaglass, either one, I think it, Diaglass Sorceress, I think that's what it is, based off of the phonetic here. Diaglass Sorceress. She says, auto, when placed on rear guard from hand, if your Vanguard is Hexa Orb or Pentagleam, Counter Blast 1, discard card from your hand, let the top 2 cards of your deck, choose up to 2 unit cards from among them, call them to rear guard circle, and then put the rest on top of your deck in any order. So this card is great for early game things you want to try to accomplish with Hexa Orb. Maybe try to Counter Blast 1. Like you may have to forego your ride deck with tier square skill. When Pentagleam rides on her, you may have to forego that unless your opponent gives you 2 damage. But you can choose not to draw the 1 card and instead get 2 cards on the board off of Diaglass. And then if your Vanguard is Hexa Orb, if your top 3 check is like 2 normal units and then a trigger unit, you can play Diaglass and then use her skill and then take those 2 blanks that were non-triggers and then put them onto the board. So now you know that your very next card is a trigger, and you can kind of keep that in mind throughout the rest of your turn. So it enables some really cool plays you can do as a Hexa Orb player to try to make sure that your checks are as live as possible to combine with Hexa Orb's power gain skill. I think it's really cool. And then the number 1 card for Keter in set 2, in my opinion, Knight of Subtlety Owine, another Hexa Orb support card. So when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, if your Vanguard is Hexa Orb, Soul Blast 1, look at the top 2 cards from the top of your deck, choose up the 2 cards from among them, put them on top of your deck in any order, and then put the rest on the bottom in any order. And then when your drive check reveals the trigger unit, you can counter blast 1 and give him plus 10,000 power to the end of turn. So this card is better Tartine, which Hexa Orb already played 4 of in set 1. Basically, it's a Tartine that doesn't rest itself, just because by restricting it to being just played for Hexa Orb, you unlock full potential of a Tartine, basically. And you can put both on top, put both on bottom, split them on top or bottom, depending on how you want to do it. So it has flexibility there in terms of manipulating the top 2 cards of your deck in unprecedentedly top or bottom, because I don't think any other card looks at 2 and then can put 2 on top or bottom like Owine does. So that makes an incredible value there. And then with his secondary skill, it helps you late game if you have a lot of counter blasts to use, just by making an incredibly strong rear guard, especially when you combine it with Hexa Orb stack ability. So you already know that maybe your top 2 cards are triggers, and then you can make Owine counter blast 1 for every trigger check and get additional power that way. So it kind of gives you power flexibility to be able to beat your opponent down as effectively as possible. So between Diaglass and Owine, it really made Hexa Orb markedly better than it was in set 1. And to me, that's what puts them cut above in terms of being the top cards of the set, in my opinion, for Keter.